once again, it's about knowing the area that you live in. So and very easily you can go online and find out what the value of the houses are in your area. And so if every area has a capping price, right? And so if you bought a house for $500,000 and the highest home in that area sold for $600,000, you would not do $100,000 worth of renovations on that home because it's only ever going to make $600,000. No matter what you do to it, there's a line. Yeah. So there's an old saying that you buy the worst house in the best street. So that's a good one because it's very true, and that's what we did in Mirabel. We bought a flat. It was a good investment.
Can you build equity without renovating?
Yep. Yeah, you can in housing. Less now because of COVID and the interest rates. But yes, so the house that we live in is 15 years old. We live in Taitapu, which is a reasonably affluent area for ridiculous reasons, but it is. And our house is probably doubled in price in that 15 years. But then what we did is we bought 500 homes and we surrounded by mine.
How do you calculate it? Like, is it at the same time houses already going up?
Oh yeah. Well, here's an example. If you pay on average $450 a week in rent, which is lower than the market in Christchurch at the moment, but is the average of what Māori pay, because we live in lower economic areas, so we pay lower rent, but it's about $450 a week. That's $20,000 a year that you're giving to someone else. Okay? And there's times in your life you have to do that. You need to be okay with it. But it's $20,000 a year that you're giving to someone else, right? If you buy your own home, it's $20,000 that you're automatically putting into your own investment. So in theory, you're saving $20,000 a year because you're growing your own wealth, not someone else's. So that makes sense. So then the other thing that comes out of that, if you buy in the right area, so this is a really good area to buy it, and actually it's wonderful because we actually have a P2P in here, so there's a little bit of diversity within the community. This area will automatically every year climb in a certain amount because it has a very well recognised high school. So Cashmere High School is the largest mainstream high school in the South Island now. So people want to come into this zone to go there. So they're bigger than Burnside. It has got one of the other things that dictates the market now in Christchurch since the earthquakes is how many exit points does a house have. So there's an exit. So I can get out of here that way or that way, or that way. So that automatically when the earthquakes hit, that kind of increase this area a little bit more. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's things that happen in the world of housing that we don't even know about, but if you make good decisions.
Yeah. It's hard trying to find the difference between like the actual value of it as opposed to like how much it actually is.
It's really wrong, but there are areas, and you, without saying it, you guys know that there are areas that just automatically increase in value, and it is a terrible thing, but it does tend to be where there is less diversity in the community. Does that make sense? So the largest earners in Christchurch are Pākehā, and they can choose and buy wherever they want to. They don't tend to want to buy in a community where there's diversity.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so I like to think where we can be disruptors of that, like we are in Taitapu. So, we've disrupted. There's 5 whānau homes out there. There's 27 of us on site. We've disrupted. That's what we should do, people. Disrupt status quo.
Get into the system and bring more people into the system.
Yep.
I want to do that.
Okay, so now we're going to move into talking about, consolidated debt, snowballing, they call it. So there's different ways, and this is probably quite good at, if you have got debt, what is the best way to deal with it? Okay? Yeah, pay it off. And how can I go about that, and how will I prioritise it? So we talked about how we prioritise these. So consolidated debt, does anyone know what that is? I've kind of put it up there, but without looking at it, does anyone know what it is? Okay, so consolidated debt is I go to the bank and I get a personal loan and I bring all my debt into one place, to the bank, and I pay it off. And I'm paying one person and I'm not paying multiple payers, and hopefully I'm paying a lower interest rate. Okay, it's a good thing. If you do it once or twice in your lifetime, it's a good thing. The problem with that happens with consolidated debt is I get into the rut of thinking, oh, that's really easy. I'll just whack up a whole lot of stuff. Somewhere along the line, I'll just consolidate all my debt and I'll go to the bank and they'll give me money. Oh, there's buns out there. Get something to eat. Oh, donuts. Chocolates. Fruit. So consolidated debt is a really good thing. Have I done it with lots of whānau? Yeah. Would I do it again? Yeah. Because if you're out there paying 29% and I can go to the bank and negotiate you 12, why wouldn't I? You can make a bigger dent in your debt.
You're not talking about like phone bills?
Yep.
Oh, you are?
Yep, you can consolidate anything. If you've got lots of stuff that you're paying off here, there and everywhere, are you talking about a monthly power bill or phone bill that's got crazy and that sort of stuff, or you're talking about explaining it to me?
Oh no, I was just thinking like you only consolidate your debt if you had heaps of debt.
Yeah. Yeah, but not even necessarily heaps of debt. So here's an example. I had two young sisters that wanted to buy a home together. Really recommend you young people hook up with your siblings and buy homes. Get on the market, however you're going to do it. And one of the sisters had 3 things that she was paying off. She could afford to pay them off, but she was paying high interest on 2. So when we looked at getting them a mortgage, I consolidated their debt and put it on their mortgage, and they're paying, I think it's 3.99% instead of about 25%. So look, it's not a bad conversation to have about consolidating your debt. Okay? If you're in the world now and say you've got a high purchase, you're paying off a car, you've got farmer's card, you've got a few things going on, it's a good idea to go to your bank and have a conversation and say, look, this is what I'm paying off. Can I do this smarter? How would you make this work? Is there a way I can do this smarter? You know, because actually, sometimes it's better to do that because you've got one bill, so you've got less chance of missing the payments, and that can look better on your credit rating. And it's also that you've started to have that conversation with the bank about how does my money work better for me. So that's not a bad idea. Now, I do work with whānau that can't consolidate their debt. So if you go to the bank every 2 years and you consolidate, a bank will eventually go, no, they can't do that. If your debt has got beyond your income, and that is happening with our whānau, that their debt is bigger than they can afford to pay off, they will say no. Okay, because banks can be a little bit risk averse to that sort of stuff. So then there becomes what we call a snowballing effect. Now, hundreds upon probably, I would say millions of New Zealanders did this in COVID. So they lost their jobs, they went into panic. Banks, when COVID hit, kind of shut down and went, oh, actually we're not going to lend any money at the moment because we just don't know what's going to happen. But whānau had bills, and so then obviously, I got lots of phone calls, I've got this, what am I going to do? So snowballing is, I line up my credit cards, I'll be really honest with myself, my higher purchases, and I go, this is my worst, this is costing me the most. I make a decision on it from a financial point of view, not a personal, not I want to pay that off quicker because then I can go and get something else. That one is costing me the most money. That one is second, that one is third. I'm going to ring the 2 that I'm not going to pay and say, look, this is what's happened to me. What is the absolute smallest amount of money that I can pay to you? I will do it, I will never miss it, because I'm going to set up a direct debit and it's going to happen. What is the least amount I can make to you, because I need to pay this one first, and then you're going to be next on the rank, and I'm going to pay you next. They will do it because they have a preference to you paying it. Because if you're paying off a TV and you've had it for 12 months, they're not going to get anything back on it. It's not ideally what they want. If you're paying off a car and you've had it, if you bought a new car and say it was worth 40,000, the minute you drive it out of the car park, it's worth 30. So they don't want to take it back. They want to have a conversation with you about how's that best going to work. So have that conversation. Get those credit cards in line. Every spare cent you have has to go on that getting rid of it. Get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it. Does that make sense? Yeah. And if you guys are in conversations where you're having with whānau and they say, we've got this, we've accumulated this is happening, talk to them about doing snowball and just don't procrastinate about your finances and get it started.
Do you like police fines and stuff?
Yeah. So my husband, I feel really bad about talking about that. So he's really bad in speeding tickets and parking fines and doesn't tell me. And then not so much now, but we like to have trips overseas. And we had one trip that we went to go to Australia and we got called up at customs and they weren't going to let us out of the country because my husband had so many outstanding fines. He's a wonderful father and a great grandfather, but he's terrible at stuff like that. And actually it's probably my fault, so probably when he was young he used to growl about it. So now he just, we're going to talk to you about it, she's going to growl at me. They will bite you. So then, just deal with them. When we were younger and he didn't pay it and went to court and then we got the court fine added in, blah, blah, and we couldn't afford to pay it all off then, I just set up a direct debit to them and said, I really want to pay it, I can't afford to, what can I do? I know I've got to pay it, how do we work around it? What do we do? And I think I paid it back at about $7 a week because that's what I could afford to pay. But I paid it. And they were happy because I paid it. And they don't charge you interest. But if I hadn't paid it, something like every 3 months they had another $80 on top for more. But it's got to go backwards and forwards between the courts. Yeah, so just, go, there's like New Zealand fines, go online, put your, think it's your driver's license you put in there and it flicks you back. So every time now before we go, we obviously haven't got over, but before we go overseas, I do that on him to see what's going to catch me. So, fines are a bit of a bugbear to us, and he's really unlucky. Our car was like, I think it was like 1 day over not being registered, and we're parked in town. It was like $350. They are.
It happened to us as well. We parked on the lawn of us in front of our lawn. And so the guys would come and give me a ticket because my car wasn't registered, but it was on our lawn, like it was parked. It was like 7 o'clock in the morning.
Someone did. That's what it was. Okay, so these are some websites that I've written down for credit checks to do credit ratings. It's really funny. I literally do have whānau that ping me texts to tell me that your credit rating was so much better than they thought. Which is hilarious.
Credit simple as well.
Pardon? Not what I use. No, I just don't use it. That should be an NZ. This is probably the one I use the most because I do housing. Anyone that comes for a house, you have to do a credit check on. Yeah. And that, one of the other things I want to start working on, so this book I've improved it. What I will say about this book, I kind of hope that you've worked this out about, and the whānau I work with are exactly the same. So we all started doing this 15 years ago. It's been in our homes 13 years ago. So we as a whānau made a collective decision to do this book. So we got a financial person to come in, and we all sat down as a whānau and she did this book with us and we lived by it. It has allowed us to have the lifestyle that we have now. The lifestyle we have now is maybe not as big as whatever people want, but it's what we like. So that's what it is about. So you set your goals of what you want, and ours are what we've got, and we've got there, and we're lucky. What I will say this book did for me, so about 7 years ago, my husband got diagnosed with heart failure. He didn't work for 4 years. So we went from earning just under $2,000 a week down to $425 a week. And if we had not had this book, we would have lost our home. So if there's anything that, this book is honestly, if you can start to become aware of where you spend your money and what you do with it, it's a game changer. It really is a game changer. The other thing that it has done for me is it taught me when I look back on my monthly, where did I spend my money? And that's what made us make a decision as a whānau, that we were spending money on making other people's lives better that were not Māori and that we did not like. And so we morally made decisions on this book. Well, that's a good world to live in. For me, it's my, do I eat McDonald's? Of course I do. But, I make decisions on those things. I eat McDonald's. You think this is funny? Eggs, pork and water, corned beef, the airport, Marymount. Do you know why? They're Māori owned. They're owned by the Trails, who are a Māori whānau. So, do I eat McDonald's? Yes.
Wait, so there's one.
Where do you find those out?
Yeah.
How do you find those?
Well, just because I've been in business. Yeah. So, yeah. So, right, exactly. So, even those ones. What I will say is, and they are not a hearty family with the reo, but they're a hearty family altogether. And so they're incredibly wealthy. They're wealthier than I'll ever be, but I still feel better spending my money with them. He actually, in the South Island, hires the most diverse community. Makes me happy.
So, what was the whānau that brings it?
The Trails. His name's Murray Trails.
Are they here in Christchurch?
Yeah, but they come from the North Island. So the mum, so her and her husband owned it. Mum's Māori. She actually used to be a New Zealand badminton player.
Oh,
Yeah. So things like that. So that allows me to check out where I spend my money. And I will, and we do as a whānau, if we had to have some renovations done on our house. Recently, there's not a lot of, we had to get painters in. At this stage there's not a lot of inquiries because of COVID, Māori owned painters. What my job was to do was to ring companies and ask them how many Māori do you employ. And so then we went with the company that employed the most Māori.
Yeah, they should have like a.
Well, Naitau kind of do have a little bit of a thing that they have Māori businesses, but you can't always get. So then we go to the next thing and do, well, how many Māori are you employing?
Yeah.
Then we'll come there. So we use Frame Contracting. We'll just put that out there. They have a very diverse community. They have Māori female painters and they have Māori on staff.
That'll be a good question for other businesses that don't have many Māori, because they'll be like, oh, what's this question people are asking now?
Yeah.
And they want more Māori in their businesses.
Yeah, well, and how do you treat them while they're in your business as well?
Yeah.
And obviously for contracting, if we've got to do any kind of like landscaping or any heavy stuff, we use whenua contract, because they employ 100% Māori owned and operated, and they employ ex-business. So that's good. Yeah, so stuff like that. So this book actually makes you become aware of all those things. I don't actually stay up. It's funny because I sound like I really nitty-gritty, love finance and all the rest of it. This allows you actually not to have that financial thought. Like I said, I honestly do not know when I get paid. I used to be paid monthly, and then we changed to fortnightly, and I didn't care. And I'm not rich, but I just don't need to know. Yeah. So any part-time, any questions? Is there anything that we haven't covered around this budgeting, around this financial, about this debt, about that you'd like to know? So what I'll do is I'll put my email up. I seriously mean it, because I say this and then whānau don't come back to me. Most of the time I think it's because they're whakamara. So within Mokowhiti, so I don't know who knows Mokowhiti, but we're a whānau owned and operated business, and we have 5 staff, and we all have different contracts. Other whānau work in the realm of this as well, Kaz no Rani. I'm the only one that does the budgets, okay? Because our business is not everyone else's business, and it's not right that 3 of us would know the business of one whānau member. I am the only person in the whole whānau does. Okay, so it's completely safe with me, and I want to help. Like that's just what I want to do. I talk that I can come and talk to this, and then I send you off, and you go, wow, that was great. I learned so much, and then you don't do this, and then I really haven't been that much of a help to you. Is what I'm saying. Okay? And I can flip these out really quickly. Yep. And then it's really good to have someone that be accountable. So commonly what we'll do is once a month, I'll check that you'll send me a snapshot of your bank balance, and it matches this. Your savings, it matches this. You know, not hard stuff. I don't want like blood from you. but you know, so yeah, seriously. Cool. We're probably quite good for time, are we? Any part-time, anything else in the financial world that you want to know about? What should I buy, what shouldn't I? I haven't said I know it. I don't know a lot about it. I
have one question. So, just listening about credit. So with my phone bill, I'm paying, I think it's like roughly around 140 to 150 a month. and
Because you're paying off the phone.
phone over 2 years. So I should be coming out to you by the end of those bills soon.
Yeah.
But what happens is that if I don't have enough in my account, it'll go over.
Yeah,
So
okay.
and I'm just wondering, does that still count as towards not paying and getting a worse credit score? But even though I do get paid, and then it'll go back up.
If you have an arranged overdraft,
Yeah.
which commonly students have of like $2,000 aims, what I see, because I do work in, I have a contract with a whole lot and I work with Māori students and health. And, oh, that'd be lovely. Thank you, darling. If you have an arranged overdraft and you go into that overdraft, so say you arranged an overdraft of about $2,000 and you go into it $1,999, that is all good, it won't impact on you.
Not on my credit score.
Not on your credit scoring at all. If you go over that $2,000, it will impact on your credit scoring. But really easy, what is really easy to do is to ring the bank and go, can I just have that pushed out by $100? My pay will come in and take it back to the bank, won't charge you to do it. You then don't get into trouble. And then, yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Overdrafts aren't bad things if the bank knows to set them out.
Yeah. I don't know if the bank knows, but I organised it. Well, maybe. Well, I organised it with guys for my phone bill to automatically do it, but I actually don't know.
Do the bank, if the bank know you've got an overdraft though? Because they'll
I'll check
charge.
on the double check.
Yeah, because if they don't, honestly, it's really easy. If they don't know you've got an overdraft and you go into zero balance or minus balance, they will charge you anywhere from $2 to $15 for that amount that you've gone over.
Actually, yeah, I think I have.
Is that what you mean by like having a meaningful relationship?
Just like
Because they just don't tell you stuff. So you know how they just don't tell you stuff because, well, so here's an example. PayWave. Who's got PayWave? Did we talk about PayWave when we did?
No.
Yeah, we did on the Zoom. Yeah, so we'll just refresh it for those. So PayWave's grade A. When it came out, I was like, never going to have it. I just think it's terrible. I love PayWave because I hate remembering numbers. I love it. But when a bank creates something new, they create it for their benefit. They're business people. They don't create it to be better for you. And I don't live in a suspicious mind, but it's true. Like business. They're creating something that's going to benefit them. So the benefit for them is that before COVID, I spent $80. Didn't take my receipt. Again, I spent $80. Went into that shop. You become really quickly unaware of the value of what $80 actually is. So you don't think it's much, but actually $80 is a lot of money. You know, but and so then what they've done since COVID, that limit's been risen to $200. You see? So while we've got them, we've tracked them, well it's up, it's $200 now. You know? So the benefit to the bank is we're spending our money unaware and we can charge the service, so we can charge Kmart for an example, a fee for them to have the convenience of PayWave. So it's a win-win for the bank. And the other thing that is not good for us when we pay PayWave is that and why places like Kmart, Warehouse invest in it, is because you don't bother taking your receipt. And so as soon as you don't take your receipt, and we as Māori under the consumer thing, under WorkStat, we don't return things that we don't want, don't fit, don't work. We don't return them because we don't have the receipt, it's all harm, we won't do it. So, but if you actually purchase something and you take the receipt, you have a better chance of taking it back and you'll have that receipt. If you do this book, you'll have a better chance of having that receipt because you will have the receipt because you've tracked it into here and you've put it in your box. Is that? Yeah. So overdrafts are really good. Once again, banks created them. They allow you, if you stay in the amount, they allow you to stay in that amount and the bank don't charge you. What happens is that commonly people go over their overdraft and we'll ping you anywhere between $2 and $15.
Okay, so if you haven't let them know about the overdraft and you go overdraft, they'll ping you $2.
Yep, there's a fee.
I should probably.
There you go.
And
It's been going on for about a year and a half.
you just have a conversation with them. And yeah, and the other thing is you know, when I was a kid, so you had a deposit book, hey?
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys had them. So what happened is you had your balance, you spent your $5 at the tuck shop, that came off your balance, mum put money in and you had that blah, blah, blah. And so physically I'd seen what money was doing. I became aware of, actually, my son's age, I become aware of actually $5 makes a big difference to my $20. I've only got 15. So then you make better decisions on how you spend that $5. But because we don't track money anymore, your generation have cards and don't even use cash very rarely, then you don't actually understand the value of taking $100 out of your account. It's actually a lot of money.
It is.
But because it's not real and it's not really yours, and you actually physically haven't touched it. I mean, I remember my mother used to draw out her money every week, or my father's money, and she used to put the cash into piles. And so we grew up knowing exactly how far that $20 note went. Where you guys don't have that now.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, and banks have done that because it benefits them. Because you're not aware of what you're spending. And without it all sounding too freaky, it's all part of that colonisation plan, isn't it? You know, they take control of all of those things off us. So we need to be smarter than they are. I did get carried away with that, but I believe it. Yeah, it keeps us at a level that keeps everyone happy. Yeah. So if I can leave you with anything, it's take control of your money, learn to have financial freedom, invest wisely where you put your money in. I don't mean just on sharesies, I mean in everyday life. You work hard for your money, put it where it's going to make you happy. Yeah. Any part-time. You've done so well. We don't know.
That's what you've done.
I don't want to keep your whole Saturday talking about money. Obviously I could. That's my happy place. Yeah, and so I'll write my number up now.
Are you on that page 5?
Is the one for
You're not on that
Facebook
P2P?
page.
Yeah, that P2P.
No, I'll tell you why. Because I go under my husband's Facebook page.
That's
Because I work with lots of
I
rangatahi.
remember you saying that.
I don't want to know what they're wearing and who they're sleeping with. Yeah.
What they put in there.
And that's not your age, that's younger. Okay.
Yeah, we could do like a every month try and do like a budget thing.
Yeah. If you want me to, I'm happy to. I'm happy to come into your space and help you with that at any time. Yeah. Cool.
So Rock at the moment is just over 55, and it should be here any minute now. Before we do that,
Tēnei tūake, hei mata mō te roku P2P, ka mihi atu kia pūwha tūhi, tō whāna mai ki konei tūpura i ngā huarahi o māramatanga, mō tātou te hunga rangatahi, te hunga rangatahi a Jason Hoki,